Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Federal Youth Network Virtual Learning Series. Please note that this session will be in English. There will be a French session offered at 2:30 p.m. I will begin by acknowledging that I am here on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people, and I encourage all of you to acknowledge the land you're on as well. Today's session is an Ask Me Anything panel. You will have the opportunity to ask questions regarding your learning plans and in order to optimize your learning. As we move through today's session, please ask your questions by using the Q&A button in the language of your choice. Before asking a question, please review the Q&A and see if that topic has already been asked. You can vote for questions you like by clicking the thumbs up button. Do not provide any protected or personal information. Keep questions as general as possible so the whole audience can benefit from it. This session is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel later today. To make the most out of this session, please make sure that your questions relate to the topic of today's session. Je m'appelle Guillaume Kofi. Je voudrais laisser la parole maintenant à la personne modératrice. So I'm just giving the floor to the moderator.
Thank you, Guillaume. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vanessa Dulab. It's an honor to be here with you. I think we're going to have an amazing session today. For your information, I currently work with Indigenous Services Canada, and I would also like to acknowledge the land that I'm here on, which is the traditional unceded territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Before we get started, we have a couple of quick polling questions, and this is not a test nor mandatory, but hopefully you can see the questions up on your screen. So the first question is, have you had open discussions with your manager about career goals and how you plan to achieve them? The responses are yes, we have talked and they are supportive. No, I am too afraid. No, I don't know what I want to do. The second question is, do you actively contribute to creating your learning plan? The answers are yes, no, or I don't have one. And I will give everyone a minute to submit their answers. Okay, it looks like we have some great responses. So for the first question, 51% of you have responded, yes, we have talked and they are supportive, while 21% say no, I am too afraid, and 28% say no, I don't know what I want to do. For the second question, did you actively contribute to creating your learning plan? 64% of you said yes, which is great. 31% of you said, I don't have one, and 5% of you said no. And hopefully today's session will help us work through some of these questions and how to approach them. So I want to say thank you all for participating, and we have some amazing panelists, and I will let them introduce themselves to you. And before they do, I just want to say, please answer questions as quickly as possible so we can cover as much material as we can. And I will ask the questions and one panelist should answer, and others can add to the discussion. And if I have to cut you off, it is strictly professional and not personal, I promise. And if there are any resources mentioned, we will share them on the wiki page after the event. So maybe I'll start with Lucy, if that's okay.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. Short and sweet, I've been able to do some really cool, exciting things through learning plans, through advocating for myself. I got to go with the military to the Arctic. as you can see there when I was younger and had much less hair than right now. So really excited to share those experiences. I'm currently the speechwriter for the Clerk of the Privy Council. I've written for the Chief of the Defence Staff and the Minister of Natural Resources, worked in digital communications and strategic communications. So really happy to be here.
Thanks, Lucy. I'll pass it on to Nathalie.
Hi, Nathalie Faucon. I am currently the Senior Manager of Enabling HR Infrastructure. What does that mean? It means that famous little application called the Public Service Performance Management application falls under my unit, so responsible for that. Therefore, that answer of 64% of you having learning plans was I was very happy to hear that. And so I'm glad to hear about that and can speak about performance management as well as learning. I've been in the field of both performance and learning for more than 15 years now.
Thank you, and I'll pass it to Gavin. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gavin McIntosh. I've been with the Canada Border Services Agency for 24 years now. Most of that time has been as a manager. So I kind of see both sides of the learning equation, the learning plan equation. One of my passions is continuous learning and development. So I'm really excited to be here today to add to the discussion and to hear from you what your questions are as well.
Thanks, Gavin. I'm looking forward to hearing all of your responses. And so I know that you all have an option to ask your questions in the Q&A section of the Zoom chat. And I'll just wait for some questions to come in. And if not, I'll ask some questions myself. Okay, I have one question here. What can I put on my learning plan? Who wants to take that?
I can go first if that's okay. So first of all, there are so many things that can go on your learning plan. So there's kind of different buckets of things. There are items in your learning plan that can help you with core responsibilities of your current job or of being a public servant. So there are courses on developing the skills that you would need for the job you're doing right now. And then there's lots of courses through Canada School of Public Service on things like diversity, inclusion, reconciliation, and as well as mandatory training on harassment prevention, bias, things like that. And then there are sort of career development things that you can put on your learning plan. So maybe that's something like you want to job shadow someone in another team to get new experiences. Or maybe there's a course that you would like to do that is going to broaden your skill set. Or maybe there's a conference that you would like to attend. So there's lots of different things that you can put on there, maybe a small assignment with another team that can sort of broaden your horizons for future potential.
Thanks, Lucy. Does anyone else want to add to that?
I would only add that there are formal learning opportunities and there are informal learning opportunities, and both of those should be on your learning plan, right? You mentioned job shadowing. That's more informal. Watching a YouTube video is also informal, but also, a series of relevant YouTube videos isn't a bad thing to put on your learning plan. But there are the more formal classroom, CSPS kind of courses. So don't hesitate to go outside the box and think outside the box and add that to your learning repertoire.
Yeah, I think that's great. One of the questions is also asking, where can you find training, workshops, and other learning opportunities? Is it centralized somewhere? Does anyone want to speak to maybe where you find your opportunities or how you go about searching for them?
Let me start that. Canada School of Public Service is our centralized location for all learning activities within the public service. Not all, for learning opportunities within the public service. That's our centralized spot. Your departments or agency would also likely have a learning unit, and they would have a centralized hub where they would advertise upcoming events or courses, mandatory training, etc. So look within, you guys have your own intranet, find HR, find learning and development. They would have catalogs and stuff that you can be inspired from, and then you can add those activities onto your learning plan.
Maybe I'll jump in to add to that point, Nathalie. And great. I like starting with the Canada School because it's available to all of us, and they have really top-notch courses there in a lot of different fields that you can partake in. I also encourage you to check in with your network, both professionally and personally, because there could be other opportunities out there that maybe that are just not visible to you, that they might know about, and they could steer you in that direction. So I definitely encourage you to let it be known what you're looking for in terms of learning opportunities. And like me, I've been surprised throughout my career reaching out to people, and people have said to me, "Hey, I'll coach you in this," or "I'll help you with this," or I know somebody that you can talk to. So definitely reach out and see who knows who.
Lucy, did you want to add to that as well?
Just jumping on networks, there are so many different networks across the Government of Canada. So networks like the Federal Youth Network and then Young Professionals Networks. There's also all of the different diversity, equity, and inclusion networks. So a lot of departments will have their own groups. So like at agriculture, there was a fantastic Pride network. PCO is just starting a Pride network, so there could be opportunities for you to volunteer or engage or find learning opportunities through those different diversity networks. Like Natural Resources had an incredible Indigenous learning series where they had like monthly webinars and presentations. So there's a lot of available learning opportunities out there if you sort of look at the offerings from those different networks.
Thanks. So the next question we have is, why are learning plans so important? So far, I haven't seen their use, and I've been with the government for over 3 years. Maybe, Nathalie, I'll pass that one to you first.
Thank you. They're plans. They're really good places to have. First of all, it starts with a conversation with your manager. What do you need to know this year? What do you need to learn this year to be able to really dig into and contribute to the priorities for your unit, for example? And that's where you put the plans. Here's the thing: when training opportunities come up and you say, "Oh, that's on my learning plan," that's a great way for management to say, this one has it on their learning plan, therefore we are going to support that activity. They've already planned for it. They've already identified that this is an area that was important to them. So they are being used. They are being used to make training dollar decisions. They are being used to help you and your manager really narrow down what it is you need to focus on, especially for the current day, but as well in the future. You want to really cement what you need to know this year, but you want to look out to the future as well. So use them as they're intended, which is a plan, a place to document what you are looking for. By the way, they are evergreen. I know that's a buzzword, but they're evergreen. You can go into it at any time and change it, right? And don't forget to do that. Don't create it at the beginning of the year, sign off on your performance agreement and your learning plan, and never revisit it. What did I say I wanted to do this year? Oh yeah, right. Carry it forward. I've got a learning activity I've been carrying forward for 2 years now. It carries forward with me. It's pending. I will get to it, but right now it's pending. And it's great to have it there, because when I go back to my learning plan, I'm like, yeah, right, I need to do that. I've had that conversation with my manager, and that is something that I need to do, and that my management needs to invest in me. And by invest, I don't necessarily always mean dollars, but time. They need to give me the time to do it.
Does anyone else want to add on to that?
Yeah, I can jump in on that too. Yeah, those are great points, Natalie, and definitely, I hope everyone's writing notes because there was a lot of great stuff you said in there, Natalie. So I just wanted to jump in. I was looking at the poll numbers, and so there's 31% of people that don't have a learning plan, and 28% of people don't know what to do. So this is great. This is great timing for you all. But the first step is always, I think, to have that conversation with your manager and see if there's anything that is missing, or that maybe you could improve upon in your job. Are there any areas of interest for you? Or are there any areas of that you're passionate about? For me, I really like dashboards. And so it just so happened that one day a Power BI training came up in my agency, free of charge. It's SMEs teaching us. And I asked my manager, "Hey, is this something you would support?" She was very supportive. I said, "At the end, I'll create a dashboard for us, for our unit." And so I was able to do that for her. So I think the first step is always just to have that conversation and indicate those areas that you're interested in, see what kind of support your manager is willing to give you.
Thanks, Nathalie and Gavin. One of the most upvoted questions is how to plan out your career. There are so many opportunities and areas to narrow into. Maybe Gavin, do you want to kind of just touch upon from your last point?
Yeah, and this again touches back on, like, what are you interested in and what are you passionate about? If there's sometimes there's courses that are offered that I'm not passionate about, and I'm not going to necessarily jump into that because maybe I'm not a numbers guy and I don't want to get into the number side of my job. So that might be something that I maybe would look elsewhere to kind of increase my skills. But I mean, I think the big thing is to kind of think about those things that interest you and excite you and you're passionate about, because those are areas that generally uh, you'll gravitate towards. You'll be interested and excited about it when you start learning about those opportunities. It's kind of fun and it's kind of enjoyable. So I'd encourage you to do that. Are there any areas of your current job where you taking a course with CSPS or talking to a colleague and getting them to coach you, maybe that would help you in those areas. But for the career stuff, I definitely look to where your passions lie.
Gavin, Lucy, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, if I may, I really want to jump in and emphasize what Gavin was saying there about following your passion. And I think, obviously we can have an idea of where we sort of want our career to go, but also just recognize that that can change, and it's okay if that can change. Like I started in government, I climbed pretty quickly in my first couple of years, and I had this vision of myself that I was going to be, a director by the time that I was 30. I had a talent management plan. I got an acting assignment as head of speech writing at National Defense. I was doing all of these things. And then when I was actually sitting in that position as acting manager, I was like, I hate this. Well, I didn't hate it, but it wasn't what I loved. What I love is speech writing. And I sort of had this vision of, for the next 35 years, am I not going to write a speech again? Am I going to be sort of move myself forward too far, too fast, and then not be able to do the thing that I really love doing right now? So I took a little bit of a step back, and decided to spend more time at my current level, just really doing the thing that I love doing. So be graceful with yourself, that even if you have goals and things that you want to achieve, follow those and pursue those, but also let yourself change if your situation changes, and have that sort of patience. And also, I love speech writing so much. It's what I do right now. I fell into speech writing completely by accident. I was working as a student at National Defense. There was an earthquake in Nepal. The Canadian Armed Forces were sent over to help, and the commander on the ground needed a speech for a press conference. And no one on my team wanted to write it. So they looked at me at the English major and said, "Can you write this speech?" And then that completely changed my career trajectory. So I think having openness for opportunities is really important. But then if you really have something in mind, if you're narrowed in, you know what you want, look up the job posters for that job, look up the essential criteria and the experiences necessary for that job, and start putting things in your learning plan now that are going to get you those experiences.
Thanks, Lucy. I love passionate public servants, so it's so nice to hear that you love what you're doing. The next question is, how does tuition assistance work in the GC? Nathalie, do you mind if I pass that to you?
There is monies that can be attributed to help you to contribute towards your tuition in university or college. It is really a conversation that you have to have with your manager. It is their prerogative if they can contribute to that. The only thing I'm going to add to that is it's also good for you to contribute and to share in the costs. But know that there can be, in the operative word there is there can be monies to help support you in paying your tuition.
I'll jump in on that one too, if I can. So there, in some organizations, they have programs for educational assistance or tuition reimbursement that you can apply for. Again, like Nathalie said, with your manager's approval, you're able to do that, and they will contribute some money towards your education. But I just wanted to say too, like, there's always options to consider self-funding education too. And actually, my wife recently did this. She went to our RSPs and took out an amount for tuition from the lifelong learning plan. So, if you're just not able to do it through your organization, there's always options outside of that you can look at to help fund the education that you need to get.
I'm just going to add one thing, and know that if it's not this year, it might be next year. So just because this year you asked and you didn't make the program, or there were no monies to be able to contribute to it, that doesn't mean they won't be next year. So don't forget that. Keep it in your learning plan. If this is something you're passionate about, if it is the direction you want to go, keep it in your learning plan.
Mm-hmm. Be persistent. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So building off of that point, someone has asked about a leadership program certificate specifically. Do you know of organizations or departments that support that type of tuition? Or is it unreasonable to ask for something like that?
I can say that there's some really good. Oh boy, I might need some speech writing, Lucy. There are some pretty good leadership development programs at CSPS, which are free and just really require your time. So don't forget that. And I'm going to go back to the informal learning. There's YouTube, and there's a bunch of leadership stuff on YouTube. A bunch of really good stuff on the Federal Youth Network YouTube thing as well. But so know that. As for formal leadership programs, again, look to your organization, look to your learning unit within your organization, and they may have leadership development programs there as well.
Amazing. What is a talent management plan? Lucy, can I ask you that question?
Yeah. So, and I can speak to it from sort of my own experiences, and then Nathalie, if you want to sort of jump in with like the more sort of formal official. But essentially, if you get the sort of the highest rating in your performance evaluation and you're identified as someone who could be progressing to a higher level, the talent management plan is about giving you the sort of the skills and experiences that you would need to sort of get you to that advancement. So for myself, the things that I put into my talent management plan to potentially move into the management role was having that experience as an acting manager. And I also did a 360 evaluation, um, which was a really interesting process of both like self-reflection for me. And if you're not aware, a 360, essentially there's this big long questionnaire, and the organization who runs it, they send it to, I had to identify people who I had supervised, peers that I had worked with, clients who were from teams other than me, and supervisors or managers, so people who had led me. So you get all of these responses back, and then the organization sort of walks through it with you to see, like, how do you perceive yourself and how do other people perceive you in terms of your strengths and weaknesses, your leadership competencies, your skills, your communication. um, and yeah, it was a very like valuable experience of like self-reflection, and then also sort of thinking about the way that I perceive myself versus how other people perceive me in the workplace, and of what my true strengths really are. So if you ever have an opportunity to do a 360, it was really worth it. Although you have to also not fixate on things. So there was like one negative comment in the whole thing. And of course, I fixated on it, and they tell you not to do that. So you have to sort of go into it with an open heart and open mind, and think about how it can help you move forward. Sorry, that was like a long-winded kind of answer.
I'm going to step you back, though, however. When talent managements were first introduced in 2014, they were very much attached to a higher performance rating. They have since walked that back. So since 2020, talent management is the purview of your department. They should have a program to help with talent management, and they can use talent management plans, which are officially Section G of your performance agreement in the PSPM app. They can use talent management plans in the way that best suits their program. So D&D may have something different than Justice, than Veterans Affairs, than INAC. Okay. For executives, there's a centralized and a very coordinated centralized talent management program for executives. For employees, it's really up to the departments to look at how do they want to maximize talent management within the department. And so you could be exceptionally good at your job and get a rating of succeeded today, and or at the end of the year. But you let your manager know, you know what, I want a talent management plan because that's where I put my career progression more. So you put stuff like the 360, which is a great exercise to do. Actings, job shadowing, mentoring, reverse mentoring, all of those things that will help advance you towards where you're going. By the way, towards where you're going does not necessarily mean up. It can mean laterally. I'm no longer interested in communications. I'm no longer interested in performance management. By the way, I don't think that'll ever happen. Been doing it since 2008. But it could, and I may want to move laterally. I may want to go into labor relations or somewhere else, or I might want to go into speech writing, and stay at the same level. So moving and being mobile is important. Talent management, by the way, in your talent management plan, they'll ask you that. What are your career aspirations? What are you mobile? And by mobile, do you want to move? Yes. But do you want to move up? Do you want to move laterally? Where do you want to go? So your mobility preferences are very important. Your career preferences, your aspirations are very important, so that we can set you up for 3, 5, 10 years down the road. And so that's what talent management is about. It's about ensuring we have the right people in the right jobs within the federal public service. And it means being able to assess fit to those jobs, and by stuff like trying assignments, whether they be lateral or up. So just know that Yes, it is linked to your performance management, but you can have a very solid person succeeds, and you can still, and I will say this for your learning plan, and then I'll stop. Your manager, it's up to you. It's really up to you. So, and again, they're iterative and they're evergreen. Go back and change it.
Thanks, Natalie. So I guess the takeaway is for those of you that said you don't have a learning plan, this highlights the importance of it, writing it down, speaking to what you need. That's kind of the way that you're going to be able to understand, and even probably the first time you're going to put into words what your career will look like or what opportunities you're searching for. So here's a tough question. What if I don't agree with my manager's feedback on my performance? Gavin, maybe I'll pass that to you.
Oh, the tough one. Okay. All right. I'll put my manager hat on. Yeah, there's I mean, there's a few different things that you can do, but the first step I'd always encourage you to do is to have that discussion with your manager and ask for some specific examples of where, you disagree with that manager's assessment. Usually, like the managers have all been kind of trained to make sure that everything that they provide on the performance agreement is backed up, like they have specific examples of the behaviors, good and bad, that they put on that performance assessment. So I'd have that conversation to start and see exactly where your manager kind of falls with those examples. And then take that information away and then consider it. Like maybe it's valid from their point of view. Maybe they didn't know why you did certain things, and that might contribute to that assessment. So it might be important to have a follow-up discussion after you've kind of considered what they've said. And usually I take a couple of days, and I've had some success with this personally. I have had a performance management assessment that there were a couple points I didn't agree with. And I thought about it, and I thought about my manager's perspective. Came back to him a couple days later and explained what I was thinking and why I was thinking it. And to his credit, he considered what I had to say, and I wasn't expecting him to necessarily change his rating. He came back and he did change his rating, which was great. But at the end of the day, you do have a couple of other ways that you can kind of handle the disagreement. You can write there's a space for you to write notes in your PMA about the PMA. I'd really encourage you to take time to think about what you want to write, because once you write it, it's in there, and it can be accessed by other people as well. So take some time to think about what you would want to write in there to kind of demonstrate your point of view. And then, of course, you can always talk to your colleagues, people that you trust, union rep if you're in the union, about that as well. And there's different avenues with those as well.
Thanks, Gavin. I just have a follow-up question. When you say that those notes can be accessed by other people, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so well, maybe this might be a better question for Nathalie, because I don't know exactly how that all works. I do know that as you transition from different teams, the new team manager can access previous performance management reports. Of course, if you're applying for a job, they might ask you for your previous 2 performance management assessments. So there might be other people that will see it. So it's good not to get into kind of a back and forth or a debate in those comments. Consider how those comments will reflect on you if read by a third party.
And you're right. You own your performance management. It's assessment. It's yours, right? Once you sign off, that's when it's final. So as an employee, yes, be mindful of what you're saying. Some organizations, by the way, use what we call second reviewers. So not all organizations use it, but some do. So that second reviewer would see those comments. But that's it, right? Unless you give it during a job posting or a job application. You may actually hand it in. It may be asked, but you are the one that needs to print it out or PDF it and hand it in. So it's not widely seen. I don't see them. I manage the application and I don't see performance agreements. I don't see the content in them. So know that. But yeah, be mindful because it could, and it does follow you, right? So my current manager can see what my manager and what I wrote in my 2014 performance agreement, right? And we're now almost in 2024. So that's something. I just want to add one last thing, and I'll keep this short, but don't dispute just a rating. A rating's a rating. Look at the comments, look at the actual assessment, participate in that conversation for each of your work objectives and for each of the four core competencies, because there's a rating on the work objectives, there's a rating on the core competencies. The machine goes and spits out a final rating. So it's and succeeded means you do your job at 100%. Succeeded is good. It's very good. Just know that. It's not 3 out of 5. It is very good.
Yeah, great point, Nathalie.
Thanks, Gavin. So in terms of filling out your PMAs, how do you keep track of all of your achievements? Maybe I'll pass it to Lucy first.
Yeah, keep a brag sheet. And whether that is like, if you use any kind of like work tracking throughout the year, or, as you're getting close to your PMA time, like literally write down a list of all the things that you have been doing. I would recommend that you just keep a running list through the year, because there's nothing worse than getting to the end of the year and realizing that you've like forgotten something or can't remember what you did all the way back in the summer. So yeah, just sort of make note of particularly like really like complex or challenging tasks that you handled well, where you showed initiative, where you showed strong collaboration with other team members, where you did something that was sort of new to you and how you did at it. Sort of keep track of those kinds of things so that when you're coming into this conversation, you have really good examples that your manager could potentially use in those comments.
Great point, Lucy. I just wanted to jump in. I was the type of person that didn't do that, and I was scrambling in March every year to try to figure out what did I do, looking through emails and files, and it was a mess. And then someone gave me the same advice that Lucy just gave you, and it totally changed my world, because now you can keep track of it all. Plus, the bonus is if you decide to go in for a selection process, hey, guess what? You've got a list of all your accomplishments that you can then write to, and that saves you a ton of time as well. So I highly recommend that. That was great advice, Lucy.
I will tell you that I wish the PSPM app was set up to really allow you to do that on a daily basis. It's not, but you can do a print to PDF of what's in your performance agreement right now and use that to keep your notes. I would send a link to a self-assessment that you can do at any time for your performance assessment. But I'm off VPN to be able to do this. So I will make sure to provide that link. It's a good tool to help you think. Don't ever wait just till March. Do it on a daily basis, do it on a weekly basis. If you can do it using the system or using a PDF version of it, great. By the way, you don't just look at your performance agreement 3 times a year. You set it at the beginning, you do mid-year assessment, mid-year review, and you do final assessment. But you should look at it regularly, and if you have to, you should modify it regularly. So keeping track will help you modify it.
Thanks, Nathalie. I think I'll just add my favorite tool is OneNote. You can add notebooks, folders, tabs, and like my brag sheet is just called "What Have You Done?" And I just keep a list of like what things that I've done and things that I've accomplished, or things that, or even emails I get sent, like Vanessa was really great at this, like so glad she was on our team, or so glad she was able to help out. And I'll just drag and drop it into OneNote if you have access to it. I think that's a really super tool. One of our next questions is, I want to go back to school in a field not directly related to my current work. How can I speak to my manager about my interest in changing career paths and get their support? Maybe, does anyone want to take this? Okay, I'm going to go,
I can.
Gavin.
I can jump in. This is a more difficult one, especially if it doesn't really closely tie into what you're doing. But again, I'd encourage you to have that discussion with your manager, because oftentimes your manager is exposed to a whole bunch of different organizational initiatives and things that are going on that you might not have visibility on. So I would probably start there. If you have access to some of your organization's initiatives, priorities, and even things like your mandate letter, I definitely read through those things and see if what you're trying to do links to something like that. Because if you can establish a link to some high level agency or department priority, that makes your case even stronger to start moving in that direction. And like I said, if all else fails, there's other options available, scholarships, series, self-funded leave, things like that you could look at to start moving in that direction.
I'm going to jump in and say, what I once went to one of my bosses and said, "Can you help me find a job? I want to go over there." And they did. And I found a job over there, which reminded me there was stuff like secondments, interchange. Interchange will get you out of the public service for a year or two and go work in the private sector to go try something. So look at all of these alternative ways to learn and to grow. They are there, and never be scared to talk to your manager. If they don't have an opportunity for you now because business requirements really needs to have you there, they'll look the next time.
We have 2 more minutes, and I have kind of a tough question if someone wants to take it in these last 2 minutes. I'd like to create a learning plan to obtain my SLE in French. My current position is English Essential. Is there a pathway or a guide that will help me achieve this, or there is an advisor or a counselor who can help me create a plan to access this?
Two things on that one. Talk to your manager about potentially creating a talent management plan and put your French or English language training in a talent management plan. It's a good place for language training. And number two, again, talk to your learning department. They can help path what you would need to do to get your language.
Yeah, I just want to add in the French grammar courses on CSPS are excellent, like really, really good. I use them. I had my French tests about a year ago, and I use them as sort of like a study guide and to help prepare me. And they were really, really well done. So I would 10 out of 10 recommend those.
Yeah, and as someone who's just gone through some French training, definitely look at some other apps and things that you can do in the meantime while your learning plan is being considered for French language training. Things like that, the Muriel app through CBC is really good. Duolingo has been really helpful for me in learning a lot of vocabulary. There's lots of French podcasts, movies, books. Definitely look into those things while you go through the learning plan and try to get some approval there.
Yeah, on podcast, Derive by Radio Canada is really good. It's like very compelling true crime podcasting, and the host has a fairly easy to understand voice. Like he speaks pretty well for someone who is trying to pick it up. So would recommend that as well.
That's amazing. And also, I think this also touches on reimbursement for training. Like outside, you can probably access like tuition reimbursement if you're looking for outside courses. And so that kind of brings us to the end. I want to say thank you so much to our panelists and for an amazing Q&A session. And with that, I'll pass it back to Guillaume.
Thank you so much. Thank you to you, our amazing moderator. Thank you to all our panelists. Very amazing too. Thank you. This session was really informative. We have one final polling question. The result of the poll will not be shared. So this is the question. Was this session a good use of your time? Yes, no, I don't know. Okay. Just for your information, Career Bootcamp 2024 is only a couple of months away. Once again, we will be hosting the event virtually in January. Be sure to add it to your learning plan and register so you don't miss it out, please. Career Bootcamp allows learners to attend sessions that interest them. Join us for the full event or pick one or two sessions that catch your eye. The choice is up to you. Thank you for joining us today. As a reminder, this session has been recorded and it will be available on our YouTube channel. And the resources will be on our wiki page too. For this session, it is in English. The French version, I might say, will be at 2:30. So just sous peu, on aura la session en français. Donc, attendez un peu quelques instants. Je vois dans 14 minutes. So, in about 14 minutes. Merci beaucoup. Be sure to join us next month for another AMA session where you can ask all your questions regarding staffing and HR. Bye-bye.